Welcome to this presentation of Men of the American Dream, the history of Grant's Farm. Only 8 individuals have owned it. Each of them were locally notable. 2 of its owners were globally legendary. Those 2 icons of the American dream were Ulysses S. Grant and August A. Bush Sr. The land along Gravois Creek was home first to Native Americans, claimed by the French, then by the Spanish, and finally purchased by the United States for the westward expansion. Buffalo roam its gentle hills even today. Hugh Graham obtained a Spanish land grant for a 789.66 acre tract in 1796. Making him the first individual to own the property. Now, Daniel Boone had been appointed by the Spanish to act as judge for local Indians. So, in 1799, Graham certified before Boone that he had deeded his property to James Mackay in exchange for land on the Missouri River. Mackay was a notable explorer who had made maps which would later be used by Lewis and Clark on their famous expedition. By 1808, Mackay had sold a portion of the tract to his brother-in-law, William Lindsay Long. Long began building the house that has come to be known as White Haven. In 1818, Long founded the town of Fenton and sold the tract to Theodore and Anne Lucas Hunt. Captain Hunt had been commander of the original American battleship Hornet. Anne Lucas Hunt was from the wealthiest family in St. Louis. This is a view of Lucas Place. Theodore and Anne bought the Gravois Creek acreage and moved from their city home out to their country home following the death of Anne's brother Charles, who was killed by Thomas Hart Benton during their second duel. The duel took place on Bloody Island, where duels were formerly conducted in those days. Bloody Island was located in the Mississippi just outside the city of St. Louis. In 1821, Colonel Frederick Dent bought the property and named it White Haven, after his family's home in Maryland. Colonel Dent's son Frederick was Grant's roommate when they attended West Point. So Grant began visiting White Haven when he was stationed at Jefferson Barracks in 1843. There, he met and began courting Frederick's sister Julia. Grant and Julia were avid equestrians, enjoying many hours riding together on the Dent estate. Grant proposed to Julia just prior to being transferred to Louisiana in preparation for war with Mexico. Grant served in the 4th U.S. Infantry with commendations throughout the Mexican War. Returning to St. Louis, Grant married Julia in 1848. During Grant's Eastern assignments, their first child was born. Julia went home to St. Louis to have their second child when Grant received assignments on the West Coast. Separated from and homesick for his wife and children, Grant resigned from the Army in 1854. Reunited with his family at White Haven, the Grants lived in the main house and in Frederick's 2-story brick and stone villa called Wish Ton Wish. Grant built his own house for his family, a cabin which he called Hard Scrabble. While living at White Haven, Grant and Julia had 2 more children, while he courted and sold firewood, raised crops, and dreamt of raising thoroughbred horses in his retirement. A poor economy and illnesses forced Grant to move his family to Galena, Illinois in 1860 to work in his father's leather goods store. By June of 1861, he was appointed colonel of the 21st Illinois Infantry. 2 months later, Lincoln commissioned him to the post of Brigadier General of Volunteers. Ulysses went on to become the great Civil War hero and America's first four-star general. His success effectively put an end to slavery and preserved the Union. By 1868, prior to his presidency, Grant bought the Whitehaven estate. This map represents the estate with its largest boundary, circa 1825 to 1885. Ulysses S. Grant was voted 18th President of the United States, serving 2 terms. In 1874, following his presidency and world tour, Grant and his son Buck were defrauded by business partner Ferdinand Ward. Grant put up everything he owned as collateral for a loan from his friend William Vanderbilt in an attempt to save the Marine Bank. 1 year later, in Mount McGregor, New York, Grant died of throat cancer. Just 4 days after completing his memoirs. In 1888, Luther Kahn bought Whitehaven. He was formerly of Morgan's Raiders. Kahn renamed the estate Grantwood and began raising thoroughbreds. In 1903, Kahn sold off a portion of the property to August A. Bush Sr., who dubbed his estate Grant's Farm. Bush used the property for riding and hunting. He had a lodge and guest house constructed in the Adirondack style, complete with all the modern conveniences. In 1907, Bush acquired Hardscrabble, which had been bought and moved twice, and brought it back home. In honor of their 50th wedding anniversary, the founder of Anheuser-Busch, Adolphus, and his wife Lily, paid for a mansion for each of their children. So in 1911, August A. Bush built what he called the Big House, a palatial French Revival Renaissance chateau. He also built a beautiful replica of a 19th century Bavarian farm and called it the Bahnhof. During the 1910s, August A. assembled a menagerie of animals. He found it necessary to sell most of the menagerie due to financial constraints caused by World War I, Prohibition, and the impending stock market crash. Turning his attention to our nation's war efforts, Bush contributed to the Red Cross, subscribed to $4 million worth of Liberty loan bonds, and leased space in the Bevo building to the War Department for the storage of munitions. Bush initiated research projects to improve methods of agriculture and sanitation. In 1918, August A. published and circulated a free pamphlet called the Practical Scientific Farming in Missouri Manual, which taught farmers how to significantly increase production. When hog cholera devastated farmers, August A.'s researchers produced a cholera-resistant hybrid of a cross between a pig and a wild boar. Anheuser-Busch heralded the end of Prohibition in grand style, and the first case of beer was delivered to President Franklin D. Roosevelt at the White House in an old-fashioned beer wagon pulled by an 8-horse hitch of Clydesdales in full regalia. August A.'s son, Gussie Jr., purchased 16 of these beauties from the Kansas City stockyards for his father's birthday in 1933. Thus, the Clydesdale tradition began with Gussie Busch. A year later, August A. died, leaving Adolphus III in charge, followed by his brother, Gussie. Gussie was a larger-than-life character in St. Louis. He bought the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team, acquired more Clydesdales, began restocking his father's menagerie, and reopened the Big House as a residence. At a picnic he hosted for the Cardinals, one of the wives gave Gussie an idea. And in 1954, Grant's Farm, home of bison, the Clydesdales, and several hundred other animals, opened to the public. In 1977, Anheuser-Busch restored Hardscrabble and opened it for tours. Grant's Farm and Whitehaven collectively are vitally important historically and culturally, providing the public with educational opportunities for studying conservation and land and animal management in the Midwest throughout American history. Ulysses S. Grant grew from an average boy into a national and worldwide hero that possessed the strategic thinking that prevented the secession of the states and ensured the abolition of slavery. August A. Bush Sr. was the son of a penniless immigrant who had gone on to become a world-renowned captain of industry. Both of these men owned the property known as Grant's Farm, and both of these men possessed that fundamental ingredient, the absolute determination to succeed. Their homes still stand on the property on which they were built. One log cabin and one stone mansion. They were truly men of the American dream.
Under the Anheuser-Busch, sung by Billy Murray, Edison Record. Talk about the shade of the sheltering palm. Praise the bamboo tree with its wide spreading charm. There's a little bush that grows right here in town. You know its name, it has one such renown. Often with my sweetheart just after the play, to this little place then my footsteps will stray. If she hesitates when she looks at the sign, softly I whisper, now Sue, don't decline. Come and make eyes with me under the Anheuser-Busch. Come, drink some Budweiser with me under the Anheuser-Busch. Hear the old German band, just let me hold your hand, yeah. Do, come and have a stein or two under the Anheuser-Busch. Come and make eyes with me under the Anheuser-Busch. Come, drink some Budweiser with me under the Anheuser-Busch. Hear the old German band, just let me hold your hand, yeah. Do, come and have a stein or two under